Hi, my name is Vickie Fairchild. I'm here again with my sister Selma. And we're going to talk today about navigating community services.
Okay.
Because along with a lot of things that are different about raising a child with a disability, navigating community services is generally something that parents find difficult or confusing, and just not something that they're prepared to do or have any friends that maybe have experience.
Right, exactly.
So I'm thinking, what was respite care probably your first thing that you...
I believe it was, and I actually didn't know about it.
Okay. Respite care is huge.
It's huge. And it's really good to know about it early because there's usually a waiting list.
Yes. So respite care, for those of you who don't know what it is babysitting, we wouldn't call it child care or adult care.
Well, there was family support and there was respite care. Respite care was more watching the child. Family support was working with the child.
Okay.
So there was two different types.
And that's a service that's available to families
Through the state.
Through the state.
Yeah.
Okay, and so
you want to call the state as soon as possible because there is a long waiting list.
All right.
I believe we waited 4 or 5 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I would have to go back and do exact, but it was a lot of years.
A lot of years
Yeah.
to
not have someone in home to help us because we did need to have breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with as large a support system that you had, and you still needed breaks.
Yeah, I had a huge family, but we had also moved away and weren't as close to grandparents.
Yes.
But we were close to some siblings still, but they also had families.
So you weren't living near grandparents. You didn't have the access that you had to competent people who could help you care for Joshua. And respite care was critical for your family.
Right, it was critical.
One of the things that I have found interesting in working with some families is they almost feel guilty about seeking out respite care, like they should be able to do it alone.
Well, you do feel like, you want to do it, and it is hard to have someone who's a stranger at first
Yes.
come into your home. But they did become like family.
Yes.
So it works out, but sometimes it is a little hard to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because you also have a state worker comes into your home and they basically has to see what you go through every day. And you don't know what day they're going to see.
Are they going to see Joshua on his best behavior or on his worst? And they get to determine how many hours you get.
Yes. And where you are on that list. I don't know how it works now, but that's how it worked then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So respite care, that was huge.
That was huge.
Okay. What was your next hurdle working in community services?
Let's see. Well,
Social Security.
Oh, Social Security and a government ID. I know those might sound easy to some people, but they're not easy. But anyway, so Social Security is, I believe you can start getting that at age 18.
Okay.
But you do have to go through the system. He had to go and have a psychological exam, and he had to have his IQ tested. So,
how'd that go, Selma? Was he compliant?
No, he wasn't. He did some of the basic things, maybe trying to get what maybe a kindergartner or a preschooler would do with either blocks. And Joshua could not do them. He did work with him for like a half an hour to an hour.
Right.
And finally he said, well, Joshua doesn't have a measured IQ. So
oh dear.
He doesn't have a number. And he said, so my report, you actually won't ever have to come back and reapply for Social Security because of his low IQ at this age.
Okay.
But we also then had to go to the Social Security office for a personal interview there, along with this report, and so that they could meet Joshua. And I appreciate that they need to make sure this is real.
Right.
It really has to be real. And so while we were sitting in the Social Security office, Joshua did act like he does, like a little 2 to 4 year old. But then he also had a grand mal seizure, which those are very frightening, and they feel long, and they're physically a little scary. So they did witness that. The interview didn't last very much longer after that, because they did see they saw Joshua.
Yeah. But it's hard because I know some parents feel, why do I have to go through this again? I mean, after going through IEP and testing, to then have to do it again. And I do think they've done some things to hopefully streamline the process. I mean, that's what I'm hoping, because it has been about 20 years.
Yeah, because he would be 37.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But going through that. Now, government ID, tell me about that.
Well, government ID and guardianship. So I guess there's several things. But he did need a government ID because if he went somewhere or needed proof of who he was, he had to have a government ID. And actually, it was when I visited my sister Vickie and actually took Joshua on the airplane when I realized he needed an ID. So we had a little trouble at the airport. So I did go right to the DMV. And so a couple of things happened. I was very scared to take him in a crowded public place where the line is long. So we somehow picked the right day to go, and it was not as crowded. He was carrying his videotape. He loves to carry his videotape, but like I mentioned before, he also loves to throw things, no matter how much he loves them. So when we got up to take his picture, which by that point, when I say that, there's already been a lot of struggles to get him up to that point.
Right.
But at this point, to take his picture is when he just lost it really completely, and he threw his videotape and it hit me in the nose. And so I don't think
I've heard this story.
I am now bleeding. So they're like, hurry, let's, I think we got a lot of helpers all of a sudden. Hurry, let's take his picture. It's probably the worst picture he's ever taken, because they took it during, this behavior problem he had. And I'm trying to clean myself up, and the videotape is across the room, which makes him upset also, even though he's the one that threw it. He wants it back. But I don't want him to throw it again and hit somebody else in the nose. And so somehow we made it through the government ID process.
Right.
And I had a very sweet mom and her 16-year-old. As we finished, she said, "Can I help you out?" Oh. She went and got the videotape, and her 16-year-old son helped us out. And she just said, "Wow." I thought it was going to be hard for us to get a driver's license today, but I guess ours was easy. Anyway, It was a memorable moment, but we got the government ID.
Yeah.
I still carry it in my wallet.
Oh, now I can't answer it. Oh, okay, Selma, don't do this to me. All right. Let's talk about guardianship.
Guardianship.
This is hard for a lot of parents. Or conservatorship, when you have to decide to.
Yeah. But it is so important, because, it's all around the same time, because they're 18.
Right.
And if I want to pick up his prescriptions, I need to have guardianship.
Yeah.
If I want to make any medical decisions. And so he and his dad, we did become guardians for him. And we did have to hire an attorney, and we did have to pay some money.
Yeah.
And I was very scared the day of court how he would act, but I guess it didn't matter. But I still didn't want anybody to get hit in the courtroom with any flying objects that happened to be close by.
You didn't want him to be held in contempt or whatever.
I know. And I had no idea how he would act. So we did appear before the judge. Thankfully, we didn't wait too long. And the judge determined that Joshua did need guardianship. And this stern judge then looked at Joshua and said, "Joshua, is that okay with you?" And he did a little hop and he goes, "Yeah." And I was so thankful he didn't say no. But he did say yeah, and the judge just smiled. It was a very sweet moment.
Oh.
So that guardianship was really critical. So we did carry, we had to have those papers close by.
So tell me about getting the handicap placard.
Oh, yes. So,
and let me, before you go on, I think more parents need to consider this, because having had to navigate Joshua from a parking lot to a variety of locations, or being in a location when he's refusing to move,
Right.
to get back to the car.
Yeah.
Having that handicap placard, even though he could walk,
Right.
was critical. And so many times I know parents worry about, they're just too hard on themselves. They worry about taking advantage of the system, or maybe they shouldn't do it.
I was worried about that.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
I went and talked to, I guess it's the Department of Motor Vehicles, and I asked for an application, and I looked at the application, and I couldn't say yes on any of the questions that would give him a handicap placard. So I said, is there anything I can do? And they asked me to go home and write 3 reasons, I believe it was 3, why I would need a handicap placard for Joshua. So I did. Yeah. And the main 3 reasons were, 1, that we wouldn't always walk. He was capable of walking, but he was 6'1", and if he suddenly just sat down in the middle of the street and wasn't going to budge, he wasn't going to budge.
No, he was not.
And so if I had to park way far away, that was extremely difficult. And I usually did park far away, because the second reason was I had to park where I wasn't near any other cars, because no matter how hard I tried, he would whip that door open, and parking lots don't give you a lot of room. And we dented more than 1 car. And thank you to all the understanding people out there who we had to work with on dented, not big ones. And then the third reason was, of course, he had seizures.
Right.
And that was extremely difficult, because he could have a seizure at any time. Right. And so I did write that up, brought it back to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and I did get a handicap placard. But I only used it, that was just me, when I really needed to. Yeah. But I did get a few looks, because if he was acting normal and wasn't having a behavior, he was just walking fine into the store with me. But we might need it by the time we came out of the store.
Yes, you might.
So it was okay.
Yeah. Thank you again for sharing that, because I think sometimes these are things that parents really struggle with, deciding they need respite care.
Yeah.
It's there for you. It's a good thing.
I loved it. Those people, his respite workers, are still like family.
Applying for Social Security. Yeah. It's for these things. There are extra expenses for a child that has disabilities that's going to remain in the care of their parent. Right. These are for you. These are services for you. Right. To getting the handicap placard. It is harder to get to that store. Right.
It's hard.
It's harder to get into that game. It's harder to get everywhere. Right. When you're coaxing a child. Right. And it's okay. Yeah. And for you to take advantage. Right. And use those services. Yeah. Because that's what they're for.
And I'm so thankful for those services. Truly thankful.
So do it. Use the community services that are there to make your life easier.
Yes.
Yes.